the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to tell you about two wonderful Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals. The first one is Michelle Heffron, who is a life, love, and divorce coach. And what I love so much about Michelle is her story. She has lived the life of the demographic she's passionate about helping. And Michelle said that she hit rock bottom when she got divorced over a decade ago. She had a college-age daughter and a junior high school-age son. No job, no money in the bank, not even a credit card. And Michelle completely reinvented herself, went back to work, raised her kids, cared for her aging parents, and then started her coaching practice. Michelle's so positive. She's so smart. She can help you when it comes to figuring out your career, but Michelle can also help you find love. If you want to learn more about Michelle, you can find her on her website at michelleheffron.com. And you can also find her in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I also want to tell you about a wonderful divorce attorney in the suburbs of Chicago. Her name is Liz Felt Wakeman. And Liz has been a divorce attorney since 1993. I've known her for several years. She's also a certified mediator and a collaborative divorce attorney. And I just love Liz. She's such an honest, ethical person. She's very calm. She's very smart. She's strategic. She's somebody I would want in my corner if I was getting divorced. Can't say enough about her. If you want to learn more about Liz, you can find her at wakemanlaw.net or in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I am a big believer in marriage therapy. However, I have heard so many stories about people who got divorced and said, we tried marriage therapy and it just didn't work. But today I want to talk about something that I think is different. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful idea. If you're listening to this and you think there might be a way to save your marriage, there's hope, but you have tried couples counseling and it just hasn't worked. What we're going to talk about is marriage intensive therapy. And my guest is a marriage intensive therapist. Her name is Anne Cerny, and Anne is an LPCC and an LCPC, a marriage intensive therapist, a discernment counselor, and a divorce coach. Hi, Anne.
Hi, Jackie. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for taking time to talk with me about marriage intensive therapy, because I love the work you're doing, and I think that you're going to tell the listeners that it does work. It can definitely work, especially because regular marriage therapy, going week to week, I want you to talk about and tell people why sometimes that doesn't work. So let's start with that, Anne. What did you think about what I said about marriage therapy? Do you think it works for people? Do you think it works for some people, not a lot of people? Tell me your opinion.
Yeah, thanks for asking that question. I think it's a great question. Marriage counseling, the 50-minute session every week or every other week, I have seen success with that, with certain types of couples, specifically people who maybe haven't been together for, 25, 30 years, and they haven't developed a lot of really entrenched patterns of interacting that are not functional, or they're really looking for some skills and they're, you know, um, high functioning people. That I think is a good avenue for those kinds of couples. And I definitely have seen success with that. And, and it can be done in little small batches. Sometimes people come in, they do 8 to 12 sessions, then they come back whenever, a year later, 6 months later, and they're ready for some more. And it's that kind of work that I think is appropriate and good for a traditional outpatient couples therapy.
I was just going to say something, Anne. You just hit the nail on the head. Where marriage therapy, I think, works, if tell me if I'm right, is if a couple hasn't been married for that long and they just don't know how to communicate with each other and they need help learning how to have a happier, healthier relationship. I think where marriage therapy might fail is when couples have been together for 30 years and there's so much resentment and it took so long and they never went or they went for really short periods of time and then they didn't go anymore. That's when I think the problems really arise.
Yeah, that's so true, Jackie. Those couples are usually conflict avoidant. And so they've maintained this longer term marriage by avoiding coming to the table and really hashing out what their differences are. And there's a term for that, which is differentiation. And the model that I use in couples therapy is called the developmental model, developed by Ellen Vader and Pete Pearson in Menlo Park, California. And it really talks about how couples go through stages just like people do. We grow together or we get stagnant and start to get into these trenches and, patterns that are just not getting us anywhere. And so a lot of couples who are especially in longer term marriages have learned to stay together by avoiding conflict. And certainly they can come to the marriage with some histories that taught them that way of coping. It's not necessarily that they learned it in the marriage, but they're good conflict avoiders. And so they don't necessarily really grow and they get stagnant and they're in these repeating patterns that absolutely lead to resentment. And then they're sitting on all this. And so those weekly or biweekly therapy sessions, you just start to scratch the surface and then it's time to end the session. And there's something about that that feels a little unethical to me even. So, yeah,
But it's not unethical in the sense that, what's the therapist going to do? Say, hey, we're on to something good. Let's spend the whole night talking about this, which leads
oh,
me into what we're going to talk about, which is that marriage intensive therapy. So
right.
you say that marriage intensive therapy is as brief as 4 hours at a time, some as one day, some can take place over 2 days, and some are as long as a week and a couple travels to a place together and just has this intensive. Tell me about that. What goes on in at least your marriage intensive therapy process?
Yeah, yeah, there are different types of marriage intensives, but the model that I use is based on the developmental model, and it is typically 2 days. People travel to where I am, which is in Sausalito, California, or Palm Desert, California. They get away from their lives, which I think is really helpful to be in an environment without all the distractions of the dog and the kids and the work and the friends and they stay for 2 days, and they've already done a lot of pre-work. I send out a lot of questionnaires, and I get a bunch of historical information and how they see themselves in the marriage and their conflict styles and things like that. So I've done about 8 to 10 hours of prep work by the time I meet this couple, and then they're with me for 6 to 7 hours on Saturday and Sunday, and it's a very structured process. It's not like we're just sitting doing talk therapy for 2 days. I do a lot of psychoeducation about emotion regulation. I've already got a really good concept of their patterns by the time I meet them, and I'm looking for strengths and building on strengths, and then helping them develop some skills that we can practice over time. So by the end of the first day, I have taught them this eye to eye, it's called the initiator inquirer. And it's a process that is very stylized and specific. And one person is speaking and going deeper into some feeling, the other person is learning active listening. and it helps them develop capacities that are needed in a long term healthy relationship that can grow. So the whole second day, we are practicing that. And by the time they leave, most people feel like they've done months of therapy and they don't need those weekly sessions. I do offer a follow up in 2 to 3 weeks after the intensive, and that's an hour and a half. And then we reassess and see how much they need to be seen after that.
You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. Today, we're talking about marriage intensive therapy. What exactly is it, and is it for you? My guest is Ann Cerny, LPCC and LCPC, a therapist who does marriage intensive therapy. And we're going to take a short break. When we come back, I want to get a little more into what is going on in the sessions, who this is for, who it's not for, and then some final thoughts. We'll be right back. When I got divorced, my kids were 3 and 5. Fast forward 12 years later, and the 5-year-old started applying to colleges. To say I was clueless is an understatement. I didn't plan for this. I had no idea how we were going to pay for all 4 years. I didn't know what the best schools were for him, and I had no clue what a FAFSA was, which to this day is the most complicated form I've ever filled out. I didn't know how to answer the question, how much am I obligated by law to pay for? How much is my ex going to contribute? So all these things I didn't know can be answered by Vicki Vollweiler, who is a college funding and financial aid expert and the founder of her company, College Financial Prep. Vicki is divorced. She understands what you're going through, and she's also been doing this for several years. Vicki knows everything college related. So if you want to talk to her, you can find her at collegefinancialprep.com, or you can find her in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. I also want to tell you about Sue Bruckner. Sue is a holistic relationship coach and the founder of Tribe Rising, which is a membership community for sensitive women. Now, I am a sensitive person, okay? It's not in your head, and it's not like, oh, you have to learn how to be not so sensitive. No, you should be proud of it and embrace it. It's a certain brain sensitivity that you have, and it's actually a positive, good thing. And what Sue is doing is building a community for people to talk to each other and learn how to embrace being a sensitive person, a highly sensitive person, an HSP. It's a thing. If you want to learn more, you can find information about Sue at withintentioncoaching.com, and you can also find her in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And today I'm here with marriage intensive therapist Ann Cerny. Ann has been doing this for many, many years. Ann and I are talking about marriage intensive therapy, obviously. Ann, how long have you been doing this?
I've been doing couples therapy since probably 2003. And the couples intensive therapy, I really just started providing this year. But I only see couples, and I've been trained in many different models of couples therapy. And so, it's probably since 2019, I've been focusing only on couples. I'm trained in discernment counseling, the developmental model of couples therapy, and the Daugherty approach.
Okay, now let me ask you this. So you said you really only started doing this recently. How many couples do you think you've had the intensive therapy with?
I've done 5 couples intensives.
And
And
how,
I'm
tell us how it went. Like, I'm really curious.
Well, I think most of the cou all 5 of those couples were older. They had been together for, I wanna say, 18 plus years. And I think people come and they're very nervous, of course, but they're also excited because they've done the pre-work and they have some understanding of what to expect. and what we're going to be getting into. And I'm very, very understanding and trauma informed in terms of my approach with people. And I will say that many of those couples did have histories of trauma. And so I'm going as slow as they need to go in terms of getting started, reviewing what I've read and what my conceptualization is of their marriage and where things have gotten stuck. But I'm also sharing with them what I see as their strengths. And so I'm sort of helping them. Maybe they don't always see their strengths. And sometimes that is true. They are surprised. And, they've been beat down and they've been um, looking at their relationship through a filter of negativity. So it's very refreshing, I think, for them. And I see a lot of relief on people's faces and in their body language. And in the morning, we're kind of reviewing what they've sent me and my view of their strengths, my view of their challenges. Then we break for lunch and they go to lunch in lovely Sausalito and they come back and we spend the afternoon sort of getting into a little bit harder things, a little bit of each of their histories, personal histories, how that relates to how they're showing up in their marriage today. And then I teach them the skill of initiator inquirer. And that is a big, long process. That takes a couple of hours because it involves skills that no one teaches us. We don't come to the table understanding how to just focus on another person when they're speaking and try to reflect back to them and understand. We always put ourselves in the conversation, and that's normal and human. But this is a different way of relating. Um, all 5 of those couples did excellent in terms of learning those skills. I've screened them and I've made sure that these are people that really want to learn skills. And we can get into that too, as far as who is this for.
Well, yeah, that's what I want to know. So when the people sign up for marriage intensive therapy, is it like that you have to make sure that both people want to work on it? It's not like discernment counseling where you're saying, well, he wants a divorce, but I feel like we should go on this weekend first to see, right? That's not a good thing. Or maybe that's one case where they would go.
I probably would not bring someone in who has a leaning out partner to that extent. Now, if they're both leaning out and they're both saying, we're both just so beat up by this, we don't know if this is going to work, that's not a discernment counseling case. So I would take that
Oh,
and
interesting.
see them and work with them because, as you know, Jackie, I do discernment counseling like Ginny Wright, but Ginny's a master level. But there's very specific guidelines for those couples that are really right for discernment. And so if they would benefit more from discernment, I will refer them to that, or I can do that myself.
Okay, now I'm going to back up when you were saying that people are nervous when they come into intensive marriage therapy, but they're also excited, and that got me excited because I was
Mhm.
thinking maybe you have this hope like, okay, this weekend, we're spending a
Yeah.
lot of money on this. We
Mhm.
traveled to California. We are
Yeah.
putting our vulnerability on the table. This isn't easy to do. What if he rejects me? What if she rejects me? And doesn't want this to work, and what if something comes out? But you have nothing to lose really and everything to gain. And
That's
I
right.
truly believe, Anne, that if people go to marriage intensive therapy and then they say, you know what, I think we should get divorced, at least they can always look back and say, we did everything we possibly could to try to save this marriage. But it does take a commitment. Like we both said, I want to tell my listeners, you can't go in it saying, well, we're going to try this to see if we should get divorced or stay together. This is like you go there with the intention, we are going to do everything we can to make this work. And then if it can't, then divorce, you feel at least it's makes a lot more sense because you did everything that you could,
Yeah.
really.
Yes, that's ideal. And that is so important that both people are coming with open minds. Even they may have actually seriously considered ending the marriage, but they're giving it one more shot. and they are putting their faith in this. And it is a big responsibility. And I take it really seriously. And you know, for the most part, I think um it's a very big learning curve. And I think that's what most couples would say is that, yes, we felt it's safe and we were able to be vulnerable and we learned so much that we did not know. And it's so hard to teach that in a 50-minute session with all those layers of
And
resentment.
you know what else? Like, after the 50-minute sessions, like, maybe you're onto something really good, and then you have to stop, and then you go home, and in that week, something else really bad happens, and then forget it. Now you're, like, taking 2 steps forward, 5 steps back.
So true. So true.
Now,
Yeah, the continuity. Sorry.
go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
You lose the continuity, you lose that, and that's what you get in the intensive, is we're building and building, and there's no interruptions.
Alright, so
Like,
here's the million-dollar question. Are the 5 couples still together?
oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They're still working on it.
That's amazing. So you're
Mhm.
5 out of 5.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's amazing. This
Well,
I do Mhm.
yeah, they're there to work on it. So, it's different than discernment where you might have and that keeping people together is, important, but it's a different discernment is different from that. So, I expect for them to still be together after this. That's my expectation.
I love that. Okay,
Mhm.
now let me ask you this, Anne. What are some of the skills that you noticed? Like, give somebody, like, sort of a sneak peek into it. What are the most common a couple of the most common things that you find out doing this work?
Well, there's a continuum that I use with people to help them really visually see where they are in terms of their own. I'm going to use a word that not everybody may relate to, but self differentiation, which is so needed in an intimate partnership. And so I have a continuum that I can show them and they can read it and say, oh, I think I'm here. And it might say, I don't even think about sharing my thoughts and feelings with my partner. And that's at the low end of self differentiation. Or it may say up at the higher end, I feel safe sharing my thoughts and feelings with my partner, and I trust that they can handle it even if they feel differently. So it's those are the kind of skills that I'm trying to help people because remember many of these are conflict avoidant people who have just kept things in, they're not sharing, they're trying to keep the peace and there's a little bit of there's a little bit of risk taking and a little bit of, so that's part of it is learning how to take risks and share your authentic thoughts and feelings with your partner. And another skill and capacity that I think is really important is to not take your partner's thoughts and feelings personally. And how do you do that? Well, you do that by having healthy detachment from each other. And so a really good marriage has strong boundaries between the two people. They're not enmeshed. So I've said,
Okay,
I
give
mean,
me an example of that.
of being enmeshed or strong boundaries.
Strong boundaries.
Okay. Strong boundaries would be if, let's say you said to your husband, I want to have my sister come stay and her husband come stay with us for the 4th of July weekend. It's going to be so much fun. I planned all this stuff on the lake and we're going to do all this. And your husband says, you know what? I was really looking forward to a low key weekend. I've been working so hard. I'm going to be exhausted, blah, blah, blah. That he can say that to you and you're not gonna take it personally and think, "He doesn't care about me. He doesn't
He
care what
doesn't
I
like
want.
my sister.
He doesn't like my
Would you stop
sister."
even liking my sister? She's my sister. How could you do
Exactly.
that? You're so selfish. This is how this happens.
That's right. Instead of saying, "Okay, let me tell me more about that. Tell me more about what's going on for you that you're thinking you wouldn't enjoy a social weekend." I'm not challenging, but I really wanna know more. I'm encouraging curiosity. I'm encouraging self-definition and self-expression that isn't threatening or bullying or coercive. It's simply just, "This is what I really want."
Okay, and I'm not a therapist, but I will say I am in a very healthy relationship, and all my life I was in not healthy relationships. So I kind of feel like I have an authority on this, but I would say to my partner, my sister and her husband are coming, and I know, I understand that you wanted to lay low. Why don't we plan a weekend where it's just us and we just hang out and have a staycation and we'll cook and just be together and have a good time and we can do whatever you want, watch Netflix, whatever, and you can have that weekend. But for the 4th of July, would it be okay? Because that's when my sister has her time off at work or whatever. Like compromise with the person and make them feel like you understand and you wanna give them everything they want too.
That's awesome, and hopefully that's after he has shown up and done his own self-definition and said, "This is what I really want, Jackie. I appreciate you wanna see your sister, blah, blah, blah." And then you come back with a negotiation.
Mhm.
I hear you, I value you, I understand and I hear what you're saying, and I'm offering a solution. What do you think about that?
And you know what, Ann? Most not most couples, but unhealthy couples, instead, the husband will just say, "Okay, yeah, sounds like a great plan, honey," and then
Exactly.
fester this resentment. Like, "She never does anything I want. It's
Right.
always about what she wants," and
And he'll be sulky the whole weekend
yeah,
and not
or maybe he'll
friendly.
even fake it and then cheat.
Oh,
How about
yeah,
that? Fake it,
yeah.
then just cheat and say, "Oh, my wife isn't giving me what I need."
Right, right.
So
That's exactly right.
Mhm.
So you are responsible for showing up and asking your partner or letting them know what is important to you. And then your partner, if they're differentiated and healthy, can hear that and also come to the table and ask questions. Tell me why that's important to you. Because you want to know more about that person. You want and
And you
help that
care.
and you care
Mhm.
and you want to know and you're not defining yourself by your partner's preferences and opinions and thoughts and feelings.
Alright, now when people go to marriage intensive, is there a lot of crying? Is there a lot of
Oh,
yelling at each other? Is no?
no, I'm pretty careful about screening for people that don't have emotion regulation skills. There has to be a certain amount of that. I'm not going to spend a weekend with people who can't manage their emotions at all. But, I would say that there is a lot of crying. There is a lot of release of emotion. Sometimes it's crying, sometimes it's, uh, you know, getting activated. There's not a lot of yelling because this is a very contained environment and it's very structured. And so if somebody is out of control emotionally, they're not going to like that.
Well, you're regulating the conversation so it doesn't get to that point.
Yeah, I'm
Probably
driving it.
have to say a lot to people like, "Okay, let her talk, and then you're
Oh,
gonna have a chance to share." And that's
absolutely.
really
Yeah.
the way that we wanna train ourselves to be, you know?
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yes. Yeah, I'm in charge. It's not a runaway session. I'm pretty much leading the workshop. It's an intensive, it's a workshop, and I'm in charge. So
I see,
yeah.
and then how long have you been a therapist?
I've been licensed since 2003.
Okay, because I just want people to know it's not like Anne just decided to become a therapist last year. You just decided to specialize in this recently, but you have been a therapist for 20 some years.
Yes, yes, and
Well,
I love
I
it.
would trust you, Anne, if it was me, and
Thank
I
you.
thank God don't need it, but, I really think it sounds like something for people listening who are thinking, "Oh, no, I'm getting this feeling that our marriage is hopeless." Try this first.
Yes, yes, especially if you've tried outpatient or, the weekly therapy sessions and they're not going well. Not all therapists are equal. And not all therapy models are gonna work for every single couple, so be selective.
And thank you so much for taking time to do this
Of
podcast.
course. Thank you, Jackie. Appreciate your interest in it.
And I want everybody to know that if you like what you heard and you want to have a consult with Ann, you can find her at cernycoaching.com. You can also reach her at 630-291-4393. And you can also find Ann in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling, which is divorcedgirlsmiling.com, and go under Marriage Intensive Therapy. If you want to go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com, you can also go there to read articles, listen to more podcasts, find other trusted, vetted divorce professionals, or sign up for my free consult, a 30-minute consult where you can tell me your story, and I will connect you with professionals I think are the best fit for you. So thank you so much for listening, everyone, and we'll talk to you real soon.